The air in the throne room was as cold as the marble beneath Mira's worn shoes. It was a vast, intimidating space, designed to make visitors feel small, and it was succeeding spectacularly. Sunlight, heavy with dust motes, streamed through the high-arched windows, illuminating the grim tapestries that depicted the bloody history of the Harrowstone Dominion. At the far end of the hall, on a throne carved from obsidian and ironwood, sat the reason for her summons. Alpha King Julian Harrow, her mate. The words still felt foreign, impossible, a fairy tale that had curdled into a nightmare. Her wolf, a timid creature at the best of times, had recognized him the instant she'd been ushered into his presence for a routine audience with the kingdom's educators. It had been a jolt, a silent explosion of warmth and recognition that had stolen the breath from her lungs. His scent, pine and winter frost and something uniquely, powerfully male, had wrapped around her, a promise of home she hadn't known she was searching for. For a fleeting, beautiful moment, she had seen a flicker of the same shock in his piercing silver eyes. His own powerful wolf had seen her, had known her. Then the mask of the king had slammed down, impenetrable and cold. Now, hours later, she stood before him again, alone. The guards at the enormous doors were statues, their faces impassive. There was no warmth here, no welcome, only judgment. Julian rose from his throne, his movements fluid and predatory. He was everything the legend said, tall, broad-shouldered, with a presence that consumed all the air in the room. His dark hair was impeccably styled, his clothes tailored to perfection. He was the pinnacle of alpha power, and she was a teacher, an omega. Someone who found joy in helping children learn their letters, not in navigating the treacherous currents of courtly life. I have reviewed your file. Your lineage is unremarkable. Your status, omega. Your profession, while noble in its own small way, is irrelevant to the needs of this kingdom at the highest level. Each word was a carefully aimed dart, and Mira flinched with every impact. She clutched her hands together, her knuckles white. Your Majesty, I don't understand. His laugh was short and devoid of humor. Of course you don't. Your kind lives in a world of sentiment and fairy tales. You believe the moon goddess gifts us mates to bring us happiness. He descended the dais, his boots clicking with ominous finality on the marble. He stopped a few feet from her, close enough that she was enveloped in his scent again. This time, it felt suffocating. The bond is a strategic alliance, a consolidation of power. A Luna must be a warrior, a diplomat, a fortress against our enemies. She must have a spine of steel and a heart of winter. You are a willow branch in a hurricane. You would be snapped in two before the first storm. The cruelty of it was breathtaking. It wasn't just a rejection of her status, it was a rejection of her very essence. Everything she was, her kindness, her empathy, her gentle nature, he saw as a flaw. My wolf knows you, your Majesty, the bond. The bond is a mistake, an error in judgment by a deity who does not have to rule a kingdom on the brink of war. A mistake I will now rectify. He reached out, and for a terrifying second, she thought he meant to touch her with tenderness. Instead, his fingers brushed against the faint, shimmering thread of their new bond that hung in the air between them. It was visible only to them, a delicate strand of silver and gold light. I, Julian Harrow, Alpha King of the Harrowstone Dominion, reject you, Mira Sullivan, as my mate and my Luna. The words were a formal incantation, cold and precise. He curled his fingers around the shimmering thread. I sever this bond. I release you from any claim. You will forget me, and you will live your life far from here. You are nothing to me. With a sharp, brutal tug, he ripped the bond apart. The sound was not physical, but it tore through Mira's soul with the shriek of rending metal. A pain unlike anything she had ever known exploded in her chest, a searing, agonizing void where warmth and hope had been only moments before. She cried out, stumbling back as the light of the bond dissolved into glittering dust and then vanished. Her wolf howled in anguish, retreating so deep into Mira's psyche she could barely feel her presence. The world tilted, her vision blurring with tears she refused to let fall in front of him. She saw him flinch, a muscle in his jaw tightening as the echo of the snap recoiled back on him. He took a sharp breath, his own hand going to his chest for a brief, almost imperceptible moment. But his face remained a mask of cold resolve. "Guards, escort her from the palace. She is no longer welcome here." Two armored figures moved to her side, their grips on her arms surprisingly gentle, as if they pitied her. But Mira didn't feel their touch. All she felt was the gaping, bleeding wound in her soul where her mate had been. As they led her away, she risked one last look back. The king had not returned to his throne. He stood with his back to her, staring out the high window, a solitary, unmoving figure of power and ice. The walk from the palace felt like a journey across a barren wasteland. The city, usually a vibrant tapestry of sounds and smells, was a muted, gray blur to Mira. The guards had left her at the great iron gates, their duty done. She was alone, cast out, a ship cut from its moorings and set adrift in a storm. Every breath was a struggle, the gaping hole in her chest a physical weight that threatened to crush her. The bond, the beautiful, sacred thing she had only just discovered, was gone. Or not gone, precisely. It was a phantom limb, an amputation of the soul. She could still feel where it was supposed to be, an aching, raw nerve ending that pulsed with every beat of her broken heart. She finally reached the narrow, winding street that led to her small apartment above a bakery. The familiar scent of warm bread, which usually brought her comfort, now seemed cloying and oppressive. She fumbled with her keys, her hands shaking so badly it took 3 tries to get the lock to turn. The moment the door clicked shut behind her, her composure shattered. A sob tore from her throat, raw and ragged, and she slid down the door to the floor, wrapping her arms around herself as if she could physically hold her splintering pieces together. The tears she had held back in the throne room came in a flood, hot and relentless. They were tears of shock, of humiliation, of a grief so profound it felt like it was dissolving her from the inside out. He had called her weak, a willow branch. He had looked at her and seen nothing of value, nothing worth keeping. The crying went on for what felt like hours. Her small, cozy living room, filled with books and plants and the colorful drawings her students had given her, seemed to mock her with its quiet cheerfulness. It was a space she had built for herself, a sanctuary. Now it felt like a cage, its walls echoing with the king's cold pronouncements. She was nothing to him. Meanwhile, miles away in the cold heart of the palace, Julian Harrow stood before a large map of the Dominion, trying to focus on the troop movements along the northern border. He had done what was necessary. His father's words had been drilled into him since birth, duty above all. A king's heart is not his own, it belongs to his people. A gentle Omega Luna would have been a target, a liability his enemies would exploit without hesitation. The rejection had been swift, clean, a necessary cruelty. Yet, as he stared at the map, a sharp, unfamiliar pain lanced through his chest. It was sudden, like the stab of a needle made of ice. He grunted, pressing a hand to his heart. "Your Majesty?" his beta, Darius, asked from across the room. "It's nothing. A momentary indigestion." Darius raised a skeptical eyebrow, but said nothing. The pain subsided to a dull ache, a strange throb deep within his ribs. He dismissed it. It was merely the residual shock of severing a faded bond. It was a powerful piece of magic, after all. There were bound to be side effects. They would fade. Days bled into a week, then 2, then 3. For Mira, life became a series of motions she performed on autopilot. She got out of bed. She forced down a few bites of toast. She went to the school and poured what little energy she had into her students. The children, with their innocent questions and bright smiles, were the only thing that kept her tethered to the world. But the moment she returned to her empty apartment, the facade crumbled. The grief was a physical presence, a heavy cloak she couldn't take off. And every night, without fail, she would lie in bed and the tears would come. It was a ritual of sorrow she couldn't control. She wept for the mate who didn't want her, for the future that had been stolen, for the deep, intrinsic sense of wrongness that came with a broken bond. She was thinner, her clothes hanging loosely on her frame. Dark circles were permanent shadows beneath her eyes. Her best friend Rosa, a fellow teacher, tried to help, bringing her food she wouldn't eat and offering words of comfort that couldn't penetrate the fog of her pain. "Mira, please, you have to tell me what happened. You're wasting away," Rosa pleaded one evening, setting down a pot of soup. "I can't," Mira whispered, her voice hollow. "Just leave it, please." For Julian, the 3 weeks were a special kind of hell. The phantom pains had not faded, they had intensified. What began as sharp stings had evolved into visceral, tearing sensations. It felt as though someone were methodically pushing shards of glass deeper and deeper into his heart. The attacks were unpredictable, striking without warning. During a tense negotiation with the Stone Fang Pack's Alpha, a wave of agony so intense washed over him that he had to grip the arms of his throne to keep from crying out. Sleep offered no escape. In fact, the nights were the worst. The pain would spike, a relentless barrage of sharp, piercing blows that left him gasping in the dark. He would double over, his powerful body racked with an agony that had no source. He summoned the royal healers, the most powerful in the Dominion. They examined him thoroughly, using ancient spells and diagnostic magic. "Your Majesty, you are in perfect physical health," the head healer Alara told him, her brow furrowed in confusion. "There is no wound, no poison, no curse that we can detect. This pain, it should not exist." "But it does exist, Alara," Julian snarled, his patience worn thin. "Find the cause." But they could not. Darius watched his king deteriorate with growing alarm. "Julian, you have to tell me what's wrong. This is more than just stress." "I'm fine," Julian lied, his voice rough. Just then, a particularly vicious wave of pain hit him. He choked back a gasp, his knuckles turning white as he gripped the marble mantelpiece. "Fine? Julian, you're as white as a ghost. Let me help you." "You can't. No one can." The pattern began to emerge slowly. Julian, a creature of logic and strategy, started to analyze his affliction with the same intensity he applied to a battlefield. The pain was not random. It was worse at night, far worse. During the day, while still present, it was a dull, manageable ache, punctuated by the occasional sharp sting. But as dusk fell, the intensity would begin to build, culminating in the nightly torture that left him exhausted and frayed. He started keeping a journal, marking the time and intensity of each spike. The worst of it always began in the deep evening and lasted for hours into the night. The thought he had so violently suppressed returned. The Omega teacher. Mira. He tried to shove it away. He had severed the bond. It was done. But what if it wasn't? In desperation, he sought out Elder Moira, the oldest living wolf in the Dominion, keeper of ancient knowledge. He found her in her cottage on the edge of the royal forest. "Can a severed bond cause physical pain to the one who rejected it?" he asked without preamble. The ancient wolf studied him with milky eyes that seemed to see straight through him. "Ah, so the rumors are true. The king rejected his fated mate." Julian's jaw tightened. "Answer the question." She gestured for him to sit. When a bond is severed, particularly by the one who should protect it, the moon goddess does not leave such an act unpunished. "You sought to avoid the vulnerability of the mate bond, yes?" He nodded stiffly. "Then, she ensures you feel every consequence of that choice. The bond you broke, it did not sever cleanly. A shard of it remains, twisted and dark. It has become a mirror. What is it mirroring? Your mate's suffering. Every tear she sheds, you feel as physical pain. It is the goddess's justice. You wanted to cut out your heart's vulnerability, so she made you experience the pain of the heart you broke. Julian felt the blood drain from his face. That's impossible. I used the formal rejection right. Is it impossible? Or is it exactly what you deserve? The pain is not random, is it, Your Majesty? It comes in waves. It is worst at night. Julian's hands clenched into fists. How do I stop it? You know how. Stop her tears. Heal what you have broken. But be warned, if you seek her out only to end your own pain, if your heart is not truly repentant, the bond will sense the falsehood. There are no half measures with the goddess. A bond can be reforged if both parties choose it with full hearts and complete forgiveness. But if either holds back, if either harbors resentment or falsehood, it will shatter permanently. There are no third chances. Julian stumbled out of the cottage, the weight of the truth crushing him. He had done this. His calculated cruelty, his pride, his foolish belief that he knew better than fate itself. It had all led to this. He hadn't just broken her heart, he had created a circuit of pain, trapping them both in a cycle of suffering. The arrogance drained out of him, replaced by a wave of guilt so profound it threatened to drown him. He had called her weak, a willow branch. But she had endured this agony for weeks, the raw, undiluted grief of a rejected mate. He, the mighty Alpha King, had nearly been broken by a mere echo of it. He couldn't just endure this. He had to stop it. And there was only one way to do that. He had to find her. He had to fix what he had so brutally broken. "Darius!" he roared upon returning to the palace. His beta was at his side instantly. "Find Mira Sullivan, the Omega teacher. I need to know where she is, now." "The Omega you rejected, sire? I was under the impression—" "I was wrong. Find her. Use every resource we have. I don't care if you have to turn this city upside down. I need her location before nightfall." Late in the afternoon, Darius returned. "We found her, Your Majesty. She has an apartment in the Weavers' District, on Quill Street, above a bakery. She is still teaching at the Silverwood Pack Elementary. Our reports indicate she has not been well. She has lost a significant amount of weight. The headmistress is concerned." Each word was another twist of the knife in Julian's chest. He had done that. "Prepare a simple cloak. I will go alone." "Sire, that is unwise. Your safety." "My safety is irrelevant. The only thing that matters is getting to her." He traveled on foot, the hood of the cloak pulled low. The journey to the Weavers' District was a descent from his world of power and privilege into the reality of his people. He found Quill Street easily enough. The bakery on the corner filled the air with a sweet, warm aroma. He looked up at the windows on the second floor. They were dark. As he stood there, hesitating, he felt it. Her presence. The frayed, damaged thread of their bond tugged at him, a beacon of misery in the bustling street. Her pain was a palpable aura surrounding the building. Taking a deep breath, he crossed the street and entered the narrow doorway that led to the apartments above. The stairs creaked under his weight. With every step upward, the feeling of her sorrow grew stronger. He reached the second floor. There was only one door. He stood before it for a long moment, his hand raised to knock, his courage failing him. He finally forced his knuckles to rap against the wood. He heard a faint shuffling sound from within, then the scraping of a lock. The door opened a few inches, and a sliver of a face peered out. It was her, but it was a fragile, haunted version of the woman he had dismissed. Her skin was pale, almost translucent, stretched taut over the delicate bones of her face. The warm light in her brown eyes had been extinguished, replaced by a deep, weary sadness. The dark circles beneath them were stark and bruised-looking. When her eyes focused on him, they widened first in disbelief, then in pure, unadulterated fear. A small gasp escaped her lips, and she stumbled back, her hand flying to her mouth. "You, what are you doing here?" Mira, please, don't. Just let me talk to you. There's nothing to talk about. You made yourself very clear, Your Majesty. I am nothing to you. I was wrong. I was a fool. A cruel, arrogant fool. She stared at him, the battle raging within her visible on her face. Reluctantly, she opened the door wider, though she stayed near it, ready to flee. He stepped inside. Mira, I came here to apologize, but the words feel meaningless. I know that. I saw what I wanted to see in you. Weakness. I was blind. I was so terrified of being vulnerable that I destroyed the most precious gift I've ever been given. Why are you here, Julian? To torment me further? To see if I've faded away as you commanded? No. I'm here because the bond isn't broken. Her eyes widened. What are you talking about? You severed it. I felt it. I tried, but a piece of it remains. A connection. Mira, every time you cry, I feel it. Every single tear. It's like glass in my heart. For weeks, I've been in agony, and I didn't understand why. Now I do. It's your pain. I'm feeling your pain. The color drained completely from her face. Oh, goddess, that's why you're here. You want me to stop crying so your pain will go away. The accusation struck him to the core. At first, yes. At first, I just wanted it to stop. But then I realized what it meant. I realized the depth of the pain I've caused you. Seeing you now, Mira, my pain is nothing. I don't deserve your forgiveness. I don't deserve to even be in your presence. But I am begging you for it. I am begging you for a chance to fix this. Please, Mira. Her expression was unreadable. I don't know what to say. You can't just break a person and then decide to put them back together when it becomes inconvenient for you. I know. Just let me try. Please. She looked at him for a long, silent moment, and then slowly she shook her head. Leave. Please. Just leave me alone. Her rejection was a fresh wound, but he nodded. He turned and walked out, his heart heavier than it had ever been. But as he descended the stairs, he knew one thing for certain. He wasn't giving up. Julian did not leave the Weavers' district. He rented a small room in an inn across the street with a clear view of her window. From there, he began his silent vigil. The first night was the hardest. The pain escalated as darkness fell, a clear sign that his presence had distressed her. He sat in the dark, his fists clenched, enduring the agony he deserved. The next morning, his campaign began. Through a discreet agent, he had a new coat delivered, warm, soft wool in deep forest green, with no note. He arranged for a crate of fresh food from the royal kitchens to be left on her doorstep. He paid for repairs to the building's roof. These were small things, impersonal things. He was trying to ease her burdens without intruding. Days turned into a week. One evening, he dared a more personal gesture. He bought a single, perfect white rose and left it on her doorstep with a card. On it, he wrote just 2 words, I'm sorry. He watched from his window as she found it. She picked it up, read the note, and held the rose to her nose. For the first time in weeks, he saw something other than pain in her eyes. That night, the storm of pain in his chest was noticeably calmer. It was the first sign of hope. He continued. He learned her favorite tea and had it delivered. He heard the school was short on supplies, and the next day crates of new books arrived. He never claimed credit. He simply wanted to make her life easier. But Mira was not fooled. A week after the first rose, she caught him. He was standing in the shadows across from her building when she emerged from a late parent meeting at school. She crossed the street directly toward him. I know it's you, she said, her voice tight. The coat, the food, the books. Stop trying to buy my forgiveness. I'm not trying to buy it, he said quietly, stepping into the lamplight. I'm trying to show you I can care for you the way I should have from the beginning. She crossed her arms. You think gifts erase what you did? No, nothing can erase it. But I can try to build something new, something better. She stared at him, her eyes glistening. You really feel it? When I cry? Every time. Her face crumpled slightly, a war of emotions. That's horrible. For both of us. Yes. She took a shaky breath. I need time. I know. I'll be here. As long as it takes. She turned and walked back to her building without another word. But she didn't slam the door. It was progress. 2 weeks later, Rosa cornered Mira in the school's supply room. That's the king outside your window every night, isn't it? I've seen him. What in the goddess's name is going on? Mira finally broke down and told her everything. The bond, the rejection, the pain connection, the groveling. Rosa's face went through a spectrum of emotions: rage, disbelief, protectiveness. He what? I don't care if he's the king, Rosa, please. I need to figure this out myself. He broke you, Mira. If he's not serious, if he hurts you again... I'll tear his throat out myself, Rosa finished fiercely. Mira gave a watery laugh. I know you would. That's why I love you. Just promise me, if he does anything that feels wrong, you'll tell him to leave. I promise. The next day, Rosa intercepted Julian as he was leaving another anonymous delivery. She doesn't need your money, Your Majesty. She needs proof you won't break her again. Julian met her fierce gaze steadily. I know. That's what I'm trying to give her. You hurt my best friend. If you do it again, king or not, you'll answer to more than just the moon goddess. Understood. Rosa studied him, then gave a curt nod. Good. 3 weeks into his vigil, the turning point came. Mira was walking home from school on a gray, drizzly afternoon when a large wolf shifter stepped out from an alley, blocking her path. Julian, watching from his usual spot, went on high alert. It was Grigor from the Stonefang pack. Well, well, Grigor sneered. If it isn't the little Omega schoolteacher. I heard the king cast you aside. You look half-starved. I don't know who you are. Please let me pass. Oh, I think you do. My father tells me the great Alpha King Harrow has been in a foul mood lately. Maybe it's because he ended up with a useless, wolfless Omega for a mate. What a disgrace. Mira flinched. Before Julian could even think, he was moving. He strode forward and placed himself between Mira and Grigor. The lady asked you to let her pass, Julian said, his voice low and deadly. And who are you to... Julian pushed back his hood. Grigor's face went white with terror. Your Majesty, I didn't... You knew she was a lone Omega, and you chose to harass her. You are a coward, Grigor. You bring shame to your pack. Now get out of my sight before I decide to make this an official diplomatic incident. Grigor fled, stumbling over himself. Julian turned to Mira. Are you all right? She nodded, still clutching her bag, staring at him with wide eyes. Yes, thank you. He will not bother you again. They stood in tense silence. You've been here all this time, haven't you? She asked softly. Yes. Why? Because saying I'm sorry isn't enough. I needed to show you. I needed to prove that I could be the man you deserve, not the monster I was. A single tear traced down her cheek, but this time the pain in his chest was different. Softer. A shared sorrow rather than a shard of glass. I don't know what to think. Can we talk? Not here. There's a small park a few blocks from here. Will you walk with me? She hesitated, then gave a small nod. Okay, we can talk. The park was quiet, the rain softening to mist. They sat on a bench under an ancient oak, leaving careful distance between them. I never thanked you for the school supplies, Mira said finally. The children were so happy. It was nothing. Seeing you with them, you have a gift, Mira. You bring light to their lives. It's all I've ever wanted to do, to help things grow. I want to explain, Julian said, turning to face her, not to make excuses, but to help you understand why. He told her everything: his father's brutal training, the lessons that emotion was weakness, the terror he'd felt when the bond snapped, not of her, but of enemies using her to destroy him. When the bond formed, my wolf knew. He rejoiced. But the man, the king, all I could see was the disaster. An Omega Luna with no powerful alliances, no training in war. My enemies would have seen you as a weakness, a target. The thought of them hurting you terrified me more than any army. So you hurt me first, she stated quietly. Yes. In my arrogance, I thought I could control fate. I thought I could protect you by cutting you out of my life. It was cowardly and foolish. I was trying to protect my kingdom, but I destroyed its heart. I destroyed my heart. He looked at his hands. Feeling your pain has been a terrible, necessary education. It taught me what my power never could. That true strength isn't about being impenetrable. It's about having the courage to be vulnerable. When you rejected me, Mira began, her voice trembling, you broke more than my heart. You wounded my wolf. She's been quiet ever since, hiding. She doesn't understand why her other half would hurt her so badly. Her wolf remained hidden still, a wounded creature that flinched at even the scent of him. I know, he whispered, and I hate myself for it. I want to heal her. I want to heal us, if you'll let me. He looked at her fully. I'm not asking you to be my Luna. Not yet. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I know I have a long way to go. I am just asking for a chance. Let me show you that I've changed. Let me spend time with you. Let me rebuild the trust I shattered. The bond is still there, Mira. Damaged, but there. Elder Moira told me it can be reforged if we both choose it with full hearts. But only if we both want it. I'm scared, she whispered. I am too. But I am more scared of a life without you in it. She looked at him for a long moment, then gave a small, hesitant nod. All right, Julian, we can try. We can start with talking. Relief washed through him. The persistent ache in his chest eased, replaced by a fragile warmth. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was a beginning. In the weeks that followed, they fell into a careful routine. Julian abandoned the inn but took rooms nearby. They met for walks in the park several times a week, always in the evenings. They talked for hours. She learned about the crushing weight of his duties, his complex relationship with his council. He learned about her love for mythology, her secret talent for painting. One evening, as they walked, their hands accidentally brushed. Both flinched, but the bond sparked warmly. They looked at each other, acknowledging it awkwardly, but neither pulled away completely. A week later, during a particularly emotional conversation about his father's death, Julian reached out instinctively, then stopped himself. May I? He asked, gesturing to her hand. She looked at his outstretched hand for a long moment, then slowly placed hers in it. His fingers closed gently around hers. They sat in silence, just holding hands, both with tears in their eyes. That night, for the first time in months, Julian slept without pain. 2 weeks after that, they were caught in a sudden rainstorm during their walk. He offered his arm. She hesitated, then took it. It was their first prolonged contact, and the bond hummed between them, warm and alive. Slowly, miraculously, Mira began to heal. Color returned to her cheeks. The dark circles faded. She started to smile again. Her wolf, sensing the sincerity in his scent and the change in his heart, began to stir from its wounded slumber. One evening during their walk, her wolf crept forward in her mind for the first time. Still wary, still wounded, but curious. His wolf called to hers with a low, mournful whine. An apology in a language older than words. It wasn't acceptance yet, but it was contact. The true test came when Julian had to return to the palace for urgent business. An old trade dispute had flared up. I have to go back, he told her one evening. It will only be for 2 days. She looked away, and he saw the flicker of old fear. It's all right, you have your duties. He finally broke his rule again. He reached out and took both her hands. My duty is to you, Mira. Everything else comes second. I will be back before you know it. Her fingers curled around his. I know, she whispered, and he knew she believed him. At the palace, he was a different king. His council was taken aback by his newfound patience and willingness to seek compromise. He resolved the dispute not with threats, but with thoughtful diplomacy, finding a solution that benefited both kingdoms. A peasant delegation came requesting aid for drought relief. The old Julian would have dismissed them. Instead, he approved aid immediately. Darius, divert funds from the spring tournament. A kingdom's strength isn't measured in spectacle, but in whether its people have water to drink. His beta stared at him. Sire, you've changed. I've learned from someone wiser than I'll ever be, Julian said simply. When he returned to the Weavers' District, Mira was waiting in the park. The moment she saw him, a genuine smile lit up her face. She ran to him and, without hesitation, wrapped her arms around his waist, burying her face in his chest. Stunned, he then enclosed her in his arms, holding her tightly, breathing in her scent. Her wolf surged forward with a tentative, joyful sound, finally reuniting with her mate. The two wolves touched in their shared mindscape, cautious but yearning. I missed you, she mumbled into his tunic. My wolf missed you. And I you, he murmured, more than I can say. That evening he walked her home. At her door he turned to her, his silver eyes serious. Mira Sullivan, you are my mate, my other half. I was a blind fool to ever deny it. I am asking you now, not as your king, but as your wolf, as the man who loves you more than life itself. Will you accept this bond? Will you be my mate? Will you be my Luna and rule by my side? Tears welled in her eyes, but they were tears of joy. He felt no pain, only her soaring happiness. Yes, Julian, yes, I choose you. He lowered his head and kissed her for the first time. It was soft, tender, a promise of devotion. The bond between them flared brilliantly, healing completely, solidifying stronger than it had ever been. The wolves twined together in their mindscape, silver and gold light merging until they were inseparable. He was no longer just a king, he was hers. The public declaration came 2 weeks later. Julian convened the full royal council, the pack alphas, and the nobles in the throne room. This time, Mira stood beside him, her hand in his. She wore a simple, elegant dress of forest green. Julian stood before his throne but did not sit. They faced the assembly as equals. I have called you here to right a grave wrong and announce a new beginning. Months ago, in this hall, I committed the greatest error of my reign. Driven by fear and pride, I rejected the mate the moon goddess chose for me. Gasps swept through the hall. I cast aside Mira Sullivan, believing her gentle heart was a weakness. He turned to her, his eyes filled with love. I was wrong. Her heart is not a weakness, it is our kingdom's greatest strength. It is a well of compassion, resilience, and wisdom I was too blind to see. I have worked to earn her forgiveness and prove myself worthy of the honor she bestows. He raised their joined hands. I, Julian Harrow, Alpha King of the Harrowstone Dominion, declare that Mira Sullivan is my chosen mate and my soul. I claim her as my Luna. Then, in an act of shocking humility, he knelt before her in front of the entire court. I pledge my life, my love, and my rule to you, my Luna. I am yours. Mira looked down at him, her heart swelling. She placed her hand on his cheek. And I am yours. I accept the bond. I accept my king. I accept my mate. The bond pulsed with brilliant visible light, a golden aura enveloping them both. Lady Isolde, a powerful she-wolf, stepped forward. Your Majesty, this is irregular. She is an Omega. She has no lineage, no training for this role. She cannot command respect, cannot defend herself, cannot produce strong heirs. Before Julian could speak, Mira stepped forward. Though small, her presence filled the room. Her wolf, fully awakened, lent her quiet, undeniable authority. Lady Isolde, you say I cannot command respect. Yet every day, I command a room of 30 wolf pups, the most chaotic force in nature, and teach them to read, to think, to become better than their instincts. You say I cannot defend myself. She paused, her eyes hardening. I survived a severed mate bond. The mortality rate for rejected mates is 40%. I not only survived, I continued to serve my community, to care for its children, to build rather than destroy. If that is not strength, then I don't know what is. Several nobles murmured approval. Rosa, standing at the edge of the crowd, grinned fiercely. Darius began to applaud, and soon the throne room thundered with approval. That night, Julian and Mira stood on the balcony overlooking the sleeping city, the full moon casting silver light over the world. She leaned against him, and he wrapped his arms around her. Do you ever feel it anymore? She asked softly. The pain? He shook his head. No. Now I just feel this. He squeezed her gently. He felt her contentment, her deep love for him, her quiet joy. A faint ache remained in his chest during storms, a permanent reminder, and he welcomed it. His wolf, once proud and dominant, remained gently subdued around hers, a posture of permanent apology and devotion. I was so wrong about you, he murmured, your softness, your kindness. It wasn't a willow branch in a storm. It was the deep, strong roots that hold the mighty oak in place. You don't break in the wind. You hold everything together. And you are no longer a king of winter, Julian. You are a king of all seasons. She reached up and kissed him. Sometimes I still have nightmares about the throne room, she admitted quietly. I know, he whispered, holding her close. I'm sorry. I'll spend every day proving I've changed. Do you regret it? Giving me a second chance? Every day I'm grateful I did. Not because you're a king, because you became the man I needed you to be. In the moonlight, their wolves were visible in their shared mindscape, running together, silver and gold, finally, permanently intertwined. The Alpha King had been brought to his knees by an Omega's tears, but in rising again, hand in hand with his fated mate, he had learned to rule not just with strength, but with heart, ensuring a golden age for the Harrowstone Dominion, a kingdom finally made whole by the gentle strength of its Luna.